Thank you for joining me today on this webinar. Today we will discuss the 3 key reasons why and how a podcast grows your business. Now I'm going to try to keep this as short as possible, but the most value within that time frame, because I know everyone is busy and has a million different things going on. So I want to keep this as short as possible and respect your time. And please stay till the end because you will receive a free PDF version of my new book, Podcastpreneur: How to Produce, Promote, and Profit with a Podcast. Now, a little bit about me. Let me move this over a bit. This is my first time using this particular software program, which, if you're wondering, it's called Loom. Okay, there we go. Sorry about that. So, about me. I've been an entrepreneur since 2008. I have started over 30 online businesses. I'm the author of 3 books: Frugalpreneur, Authorpreneur, and Podcastpreneur. I'm the host of Frugalpreneur: Building a Business on a Bootstrap Budget. And I'm going to get to that next slide. I know you're curious and you're sitting here, chomping at the bit. But let me go a little bit more into detail. Less than 5 minutes. So it was in 2008. I had 6 different jobs that year. Not at the same time, but throughout the course of the year, and things just weren't working out. So I decided to start my own business, and it was a photography business. And I realized that while I like taking photos of animals, architecture, and landscapes, I didn't like taking photos of people, but that's where the money is. So I was doing weddings and portraits primarily. But the bigger issue was the expense, the overhead, and continuous upgrades to equipment, lights, software, and so on. So it was just getting really expensive. And so I decided to change gears and go into an online business. And I tried a variety of things: drop shipping, affiliate marketing, blogging, on-demand t-shirt company, and so on. And one day I was in a Dave Ramsey class called Financial Peace, and you may be familiar with it, and I highly recommend it if you haven't been through it. I think it's valuable insight for anybody. Anyway, so in that class, he talks about all these different ways you can save money, pay down debt, and all that. And I was sitting there thinking, okay, all of these ideas are great, but what about making more money to help with that, to pay off debt, to save, to contribute to your bills? And I had done so much research just in doing my own businesses online that I got the idea, I could write a book, and I should call it Frugalpreneur. Like that phrase just came to me. And so I started writing this book about all the different ways you can make money online and do it on a budget, like under $100 a month. Well, while I was writing the book, I got the idea to start a podcast, also called Frugalpreneur, to kind of coincide with the book, to help kind of, I guess, market it and just another avenue. Well, it was in the process of doing this podcast that, the original goal was for it to only be like 10 episodes, some short little thing. I was interviewing the founders of the various companies that I had mentioned throughout the book that I use and recommend, and that you can run your business affordably and, or even for free in some cases. But it was while I was doing the podcast that I realized I was getting more leverage and traction from the podcast than even the book. And, people always say, oh, you should have a book as a business card. And I think that's great. And that's what I've done. But I was getting the podcast was getting more traction and leverage, like I said, than the book. And so I decided, okay, you know what? I'm going to keep this podcast going. Well, things just continue to kind of snowball in a good way. And it just continued to grow. I continued to make connections and like interview people that I never thought would be possible. And like, then they had connections to other people, and it just kind of kept going. And I have been from day one, producing my own podcast, editing it, and just the whole nine. And, and it was in the process, I was like, you know what? I started out the whole frugalpreneur thing, telling people about all these different ways to make money online. And in the process, I found how I'm going to be making money online, and um, through podcasting. And I kind of go over the different ways to do that in here. But anyway, so podcasting, it took me 12 years to get there. Trial and error, tried a bunch of different things. Some things were successful, some things weren't. And anyway, so that's a little bit of my story. Now I'm all in on all things podcasting. And so, okay, let's get to it. You're wondering what this last but not least is thing. Okay, so drum roll, please. That's awesome. Oh, there we go. I am the owner of this cute little pug, Otis, and that has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about. But I felt like he's just so cute, I couldn't resist putting him in here. Okay, let's get back to business. So, why podcasting, at least in general? So, podcasting has had massive growth. Podcasting, it's been around since 2004, at least podcasting as we know it, yet it wasn't until 2019 that it skyrocketed. And from October of 2019 to October of 2020, active podcasts have nearly doubled from 800,000 to almost 1.6 million. Let me move this thing again. This is going to get, the things they don't warn you about or tell you about. Anyway. So it took 15 years, 2004 to 2019, for there to be 800,000 podcasts. So in the course of 15 years, it took, to get to 800,000 podcasts, it took 15 years. Well, in 1 year, from 2019 to 2020, it doubled. So massive growth. Let's see. Oh, and here is a little graph. This is from mypodcastreviews.com/stats. And it's updated on an almost daily basis. So you can, go check this out. This is as of 10/24/20. But you see there, it says October on the far left, October, 800,000. And that's October 2019. And then all the way to October of 2020, it's gone to 1.6 million. So there are the stats for that. So while podcasting may seem as if it's getting saturated, keep in mind that there are over 600 million blogs, which means you are 375 times more likely to be found podcasting than blogging. Because people think, okay, 1.6 million podcasts, isn't it saturated at this point? And obviously it is compared to when it first came around, when it first started. But when you compare it to other content creation methods such as blogging or even YouTube, I forget exactly how many YouTube channels there are, but it's a high number as well. So you're still more likely to be found via podcasting. Okay, massive money. So Joe Rogan, I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he had that show Fear Factor. He's had a really popular podcast for a long time. Well, he recently signed a $100 million deal with Spotify, an exclusive deal for him to just be on Spotify. And then Spotify buys podcast network Gimlet and podcast host Anchor for $340 million combined. SiriusXM buys Pandora for $3.5 billion. That's billion with a B. versus million with an M. So that's real big money. So Pandora then gets into podcasting. And here just recently, Amazon launched podcasting through Amazon Music and Audible. Audible, it's coming soon, but you can listen to podcasts through Amazon Music now. So even Amazon is getting into the game. Also, podcasting is unlike any other form of content for two big reasons. Aside from audiobooks, podcasting is the only form of content you can consume while multitasking, such as commuting to work, washing the dishes, doing the laundry, mowing, and so forth. Since it doesn't involve the eyes the way reading a blog or watching a YouTube video does, it appeals to a much wider audience. People will be more inclined to listen to your full show as opposed to skimming through a blog post or only watching 5-minute videos. Because you can capture someone's attention for longer periods, and also because you are in their ears, close to their brain, it won't take long for someone to grow to know, like, and trust you. So there's a sense of intimacy involved. So why podcasting for business? Many experts on self-promotion techniques used to suggest that using a book as a business card, which I've done, but I found that having a podcast has gotten me further faster. This is kind of like what I was saying earlier. Imagine that you want to connect with a well-known entrepreneur. You email or call their office and say, hey, can I get an hour of your time? If you aren't flat out ignored, you will get one of two responses: no, or sure, it'll cost you X amount for my time, where X is thousands of dollars. Now imagine you have a podcast catering to their target audience. They are much more likely to say yes. Not only will you then get to talk to them, I'm blocking the way again, but it'll also be at no charge to you. Oops. Got ahead of myself there. Okay, so I want to discuss the three main reasons you should podcast or have a podcast for your business. Number one, exposure. Leverage the power of SEO and guest audiences to grow your own audience and business. So number one, so I guess 1.1 here, 1.A, search engine optimization, which is SEO. Not just in Google or search engines of that nature, but also Apple and other podcast directories, because they serve as search engines. Guests. Make connections with potential future clients and customers, and I'm going to get into that here in a minute. Audience. Listeners and customers and clients get to know, like, and trust you and desire to do business with you. So as I said earlier, simply by having a podcast, you will be able to connect with people that are well known in your niche or field. And it doesn't have to be entrepreneurship, any kind of business. You're a dentist and you want to connect with, it doesn't matter what it is. So you're much more likely to be able to connect with those people, interview them, pick their brain, basically get a free one-on-one consultation in a sense. But even aside from that, well, and that helps with your credibility and authority. If you're having well-known, credible authority figures on your podcast, that just boosts your credibility and authority. But secondary, a lot of people will bring people onto their show that, maybe nobody knows about, but they might be their ideal client or customer or potential client or customer. And simply by having them on the podcast, and some people use them as like coaching calls, like you're coaching that person through whatever problem they might be having or pain that they're having or whatnot. And so you're coaching them while creating this content that's good for the listeners, but in the process, you might earn this person's business. So it kind of works both ways. Like, you can connect with people who are already authority figures, and you can connect with people who could become your clients. So now, second thing, earnings. While your podcast may not be your main revenue avenue, you can still monetize it. I like that, revenue avenue. That has a good ring, a good rhyme to it. I think that'd be like a good, like band name or business name or something. Anyway, okay, so products and services. Now, this is going to be the primary way that a lot of businesses will earn income through their podcast, by promoting their own product services called coaching and consulting. And kind of like what I had talked about earlier, that's one way of doing it, where you're actually coaching or consulting with someone on the podcast. But say you have like a physical product or a digital product or a service or a service-based company, whatever, you can discuss it, promote it, have like a call to action at the beginning or end of your podcast. There's a million ways to do it. So technically you're not making money directly through your podcast, but it's because of your podcast that you're making more money, if that makes sense. You can also do sponsorships or partnerships. So get a sponsorship or a partner with another business, leverage each other's audiences, team up with other people in your niche or your field, and they might want to sponsor. Like, say you have, okay, let's say you're a dentist. I don't know, just pulling it out thin air, and you have a podcast. Maybe someone could sponsor your show who, I don't know, a toothpaste, or Sonicare. I don't know. Just, they might want to sponsor your podcast, pay you a certain amount of money to have like a little ad in your podcast because it's their targeted audience. Or you could partner with another business and work out a deal. And there's a million ways to do that. But and then another thing you can do is affiliate marketing, where you promote other products and services you use and recommend and earn commissions. And this is actually one way that I have monetized the podcast. And a lot of people do this with blogs too, is that if there's a product or service out there that you use and recommend, ideally that's the case. That's the only way I do it. Because some people, they'll promote something that's because of how much commission they can earn from it, but that's not the good way to do it. You need to promote stuff that you actually use and recommend. You like it, and you think it's relevant to your audience. So, yeah, you just promote it, and you could even do a whole episode on it, or interview the founder of that company or product, or just have like a little call to action or a little ad, a self-read ad, and basically just link to it. Create a pretty link. If you have a WordPress website, there's Pretty Link or Thirsty Affiliates, and you can, because a lot of times affiliate links are really long and they're not really things that you can say because they've got like numbers and letters and all kinds of stuff. So create a pretty link where it's like yourwebsite.com/name a company or something like that. And then, but that link is tied to your affiliate link. And so if someone then goes and buys whatever that is, you earn a commission. So that's how that works. Okay, expectation. See, we've got the 3 E's here. We've talked about exposure, earnings, and expectation. At a certain point, your business will likely be expected or presumed to have a podcast. Seth Godin, popular blogger, says podcasting is the new blogging. And this was years ago that he said this. So it's even more so. A lot of businesses would use blogging, but now podcasting is basically the new blogging. Podcasting is the new website, quote by me. And what I mean by that is I feel like every company should have a website, But it's getting to the point where every company should have a podcast as well. Let's go further into that. Podcasting is the new sales funnel. Basically, it's a way for people to find you, discover you, to get to know, like, and trust you. And it's basically the front end of your funnel, but that it's a free way for people to get to know you and your business, and the different things you can offer. And it's basically the front end of your funnel. So let's see here. I've been able to make connections with and interview people I've looked up to for years. Just having a podcast got my foot in the door. Once you book interviews with well-known people and build up your interview portfolio, then it gives you credibility and authority, which will allow you to book bigger and bigger guests. In addition to the ability to talk with and interview them for an hour, essentially you are getting a free 1-hour consultation with them to ask anything you want. You may connect with them beyond just that podcast episode. You may hit it off and form a friendship of sorts. They may hook you up with other thought leaders in your field. The possibilities are endless. Heck, there's even a podcast hosted by Dave Jackson called Because of My Podcast, where podcasters share stories of the things that have happened as a direct or sometimes indirect result of their podcast. So don't get left behind and in the dust by not starting a podcast now. So let's go over some false beliefs that people have. So false belief number 1, podcasting is expensive. I don't have the budget for it. Here's a fact. You can start a great sounding podcast for under $100, assuming you already have a computer, because I'm assuming we all have computers, so I'm not including that in the figure. But otherwise, you can start a podcast for under $100. And here are, let's see here. This is the setup that I originally was recommending to people through Amazon, but apparently it is no longer available, or it's out of stock a lot. Probably, maybe because it's so popular, they can't even keep it in stock. I'm not sure. But this is the Samson Q2U microphone. The microphone by itself ranges, I think, from $60 to $80. But this setup here was actually for $90, and it includes your boom arm, your windshield. That's not right. I forget it's something windshield. And the other things there are your cables and cords. This is a USB mic, by the way. So it can go directly into your computer, and it's a really good mic. I actually have a ATR 2100, a very similar mic. It's like maybe 10 or 20 bucks more, but they've discontinued that. Well, they started a new one, ATR 2100X, but I've heard that it isn't as good. So now I'm recommending the Samson Q2U. Windscreen, that's it. Sorry. I knew windshield wasn't right. That's what's on your car. Windscreen, that basically what that does. Oh, and a pop filter too. So a pop filter is like anytime you say p, like P's, certain letters kind of pop, so it dampens that a little bit. And then the windscreen is for wind and things of that nature. Of course, if you're recording inside, there's no wind, but just like different sounds and stuff. So anyway, so that's the kit that I originally recommended, but it's out of stock a lot. So here's this one, also Samson Q2U. It doesn't have the boom arm or the windscreen. So, but you can buy each of those for like $10 each or whatever. But you have the pop filter here, which some people use both, but you don't have to. The nice thing about this one is it includes headphones. I don't know how good these headphones are. I would think that they're probably decent enough to get the job done, because you want to use headphones or earbuds Let's see, I'm using headphones right now. These are Bose, I believe. But you want to use either earbuds or headphones because when you are, if you're doing an interview with someone remotely, through Zoom or something, if you don't have earphones and the sound is coming out of your computer or your laptop, it'll echo and reverb. It just won't sound good. You need earphones so that you can hear your guest and hear yourself without the sound coming through your computer speaker, because that makes for a bad recording. So anyway, this whole set here, $100. Okay, false belief number 2. Podcasting is complicated, confusing, and for the tech savvy. Oops. Sorry. I'm trying to move this thing and it's being difficult. Okay. Fact. Podcasting is no more complicated or confusing than learning anything else. And I actually break this down in the book that you will receive at the end of this presentation. I didn't want to waste a whole lot of time talking about it here because people have things to do, but you can read about it in the book. I already saw this one. False belief number 3, podcasting is time consuming. Fact. It can be. But the investment of time and very little money, as we've discussed, usually pays off and then some. But the good news is that aside from recording, you can actually outsource the rest of it to save you time. So it's kind of do you have more time or money? If you have more time, you could do it on your own. If you have more money, you could outsource that. I offer 2 different solutions to combat these challenges. One is a DIY option, do it yourself, and the other is a DFY option, done for you. The DIY option is my new course called Podcast Profit Pro. It not only teaches you the basics of podcasting, but also how to be a great guest and a great podcast host. And here are some of the modules. The different podcast formats, equipment, recording, editing, intro, outro, and jingles, cover art, hosting, distribution, podcast website, show notes, transcriptions, repurposing, ratings and reviews, monetization options, hosting and guesting tips, how to find podcast guests and other podcasts to be on, and then I will be adding more modules as the industry evolves. Now, when this course goes live in just a couple of months, it'll be $497. That will be its launch price. I'm currently working on it, the course, and so it isn't live just yet, but it will be within the next couple of months. But I am pre-selling it now for just $97. And the course will never be that price again. Once it goes live, it'll be $497. Now, the done for you option is my podcast production agency called Podseam. We make podcasting as seamless as possible. Podseam is my white glove podcast production agency. All you do is record and we do the rest, such as audio editing, video editing, that's if it's a video podcast, audiograms, social media and blog graphics, show notes, transcriptions, hosting, distribution, intro, outro, and jingles, cover art, trailer episode, quote cards, emailed statistics, analytics, ratings, rankings, and reviews, podcast website, podcast one sheet and media kit, coaching and consulting, and the podcast community. Now, for a limited time, and as appreciation for sticking with me during this presentation, I'm offering 10% off all services and packages. That includes my monthly and annual packages, as well as the a la carte pay-as-you-go packages and services. So to recap, you have I offer 2 solutions: the DIY Podcast Profit Pro or the DFY Podseam. The DIY, you'll save $400 with You will save $400 with code presale. And again, that course will be $497 in a couple months, but it is going for, I'm selling it for 97 right now, for those, and then you'll basically, when it does go live, you will gain immediate access to it, but you'll save $400 by paying before it's ready. Or if, learning how to do all of this on your own is not your jam, then you can hire us, Podseam, and you'll save 10% on services with the code webinar. And I'm not exactly sure how long that will be good for. So select either option below. I am in the way of my arrow. And I will have both options below this video. And as promised, grab your free ebook at podseam.com/free. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I think I went a little bit longer than I was anticipating, but I appreciate it. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat box. It should be in the bottom right corner, and I will get back to you as quickly as possible.